Hey guys, welcome to episode 146 of Stand Up with Pete Dominic, and my guest today, Dr. Jason Johnson. That interview begins at 4 minutes and 37 seconds in, and comedian Christian Finnegan. That one is an hour and 8 minutes and 33 seconds to be exact. I am Pete Dominic. Another great episode coming your way. Time to stand up with me right now. Hey guys, welcome to episode 146. Thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and thank you for all of the overwhelming positive feedback yesterday. Tons and tons of folks saying how much they liked episode 145 with Jared, Yeat, Sexton, and Fed Ingram and Andrew Spar from Florida Education Association, and my friend Maura Quint. It was a really good episode. I was really happy about it and very excited to introduce Jared Sexton's work to a lot of folks. Definitely go back and listen to that one. Today, Dr. Jason Johnson, Christian Finnegan coming up in just a moment. But it is day 1275 of our long national nightmare. There are 109 days until the presidential election, and the COVID data has started disappearing from the CDC website, and President Trump's henchmen are beginning to dismantle the post office. So what could go wrong, folks? Lots to talk about today. Another 1.3 million people filed for unemployment last week. And as I said, the big story previously, public data has disappeared from the CDC's website after the Trump administration directed hospitals to submit information on COVID-19 patients directly to the Department of Health and Human Services rather than through a long-standing CDC reporting system. Dr. Aaron Carroll will be my guest tonight for subscribers only and a subscriber-only hangout. We do these. I've done these every couple of weeks or so. I probably should be doing them every week. I love doing it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you tonight at 8 Eastern. If you want to join me, you have to be a subscriber. Go to patreon.com/Pete Dominic. If you already are a subscriber, you should be getting an email every day with every day's episode in it. And in that, you will see the link for the Zoom hangout. Dr. Aaron Carroll will join us. He'll take your questions. He'll talk about how important this story is, as well as so many other things. I've been trying to get him on for a long time, and I'm very, very excited to have him on tonight. That's Friday, July 17th, and then I will share the episode next week. But if you want to ask him a question, you got to be a subscriber. So sign up now. Thank you to all of those of you who have this week. I'm really excited to bring for you today's episode, final one of the week. What a week it's been. Another crazy week in our lives, and we're here supporting each other, and I'm really happy to have you as part of this community. The other note I want to mention is I'm super excited about building a new studio at my house outside in my shed, which I am going to be renovating, and this is a big deal. I'm really happy about this, and if anybody has any ideas or ways to support me on this, I'd love to hear from you. My friend Nick DiFabrizio came up. He's a longtime listener. You might have heard him calling in often to the old show, and he joins us in the Zoom Hangouts usually as well. And he's a skilled carpenter, and he's going to help me, and I'm going to take you through it. So if anybody is interested in watching the studio be built, if anybody has any ideas, and if anybody wants to make any donations towards it, I'm happy to have it. I don't think it's going to be that expensive, but it's going to cost money, and it's going to mean that I'll have an awesome video set up where I can do a lot more video as well as just better work, because I'm going to be out looking at my garden every day. I'm super excited to not be in a box in my garage with no air conditioning and no windows. It served me well up until now, but that studio's time is over, and I want to put that in the past. That was my SIRIUSXM place that they paid for, and this is part of the new chapter of my life, which I'm so happy to have you supporting and listening to this daily podcast. Okay, enough blathering on from me. Thank you for tuning in. Here's my conversation with Dr. Jason Johnson, who, by the way, MSNBC benched for comments he made, which were really taken way out of, I think. I mean, he apologized for them, but I'm not even going to go into it because it's not even worth it. But he was benched for like 6 months, and it was a real waste because we need his voice. He's one of the smartest guys I know, and I love talking to him. He's a professor at Morgan State University. He's back on MSNBC now. He'll be on with Joy Reid this weekend on her final weekend show and her first primetime show as well, he told me during this interview. And you can follow him on Twitter at Dr. Jason Johnson, and you can hear him on Stand Up with me right now. I'm recording now. I'm glad that this technical stuff, I'm glad that you're kind of a Luddite, you say, Jason Johnson, because it means that you're not going to necessarily launch your own podcast and you'll still be available to be my guest.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you wishing me ill. Yeah. You wishing ignorance upon me so that I can't get in the game.
Well, just to be even more specifically clear, you're in the game. You're a guest in high demand, now back on TV, which is awesome to see. But maybe you won't want to be as a guest as often if you're hosting your own thing all the time. So I hope that you don't learn some of the technical stuff that's required.
This is you know what you sound like, Pete. You sound like the parent who really doesn't want their kid to learn how to dunk, because then you can't play basketball in the front driveway anymore.
Yeah, I don't want. Yeah, well, or I just don't want them to grow up because they're not going to play with me anymore. That's the current situation I'm in right now. My daughters are 12 and 15. I'm now only needed to drive them, and now once my daughter gets her license, then that'll be that.
They will have no use for you, none whatsoever.
Well, luckily, there's a global pandemic that's never going to end, so they'll always have to stay living with us.
Pretty much. So it's funny that you say that. Not funny in a good way. There's an article I read earlier this week. What is it? It's like 32% of 18 to 24-year-olds have had to move back home.
I think I might have seen that article in your Twitter timeline, as a matter of fact, when I was preparing to talk to you. So if anybody wants to look it up at Dr. Jason Johnson. I forget where it was from, but yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's horrifying. It's so horrifying. Look, like, I don't think people understand. I get this as a faculty member, and I have other friends who work at universities in different capacities. I don't think people realize how much this is going to delay emotionally, psychologically, financially, like Gen Z, that they're stuck home right now.
Yeah.
It's so hard for them because their lives can't start. They can't, I have kids who, are teaching online Zoom classes. We joke that it's like you come back home from college and like your parents have turned your bedroom into a study, right? Like you don't have a place to stay anymore. But it's deeper than that. I have a friend who, she works in education at a university. She teaches football and basketball players. And some of these guys are like, I don't really have a home to go home to. I'm bouncing from couch to couch, from my aunt's house to my uncle's house to my grandma's house, this, that, the other. Like, school is where I live, so that I can graduate and get a job and go do something else I want.
But that was an issue, a really big issue before the pandemic and the old and the before times too, right? Just because of economics and because of that generation, because of a lot of different catalysts. But I think student loans is a huge thing. You graduate college and you can't get a job good enough to afford to live near the job, and so people living at home with their parents again. And
I can say this. I usually, I'll speak sort of in generalities about this, but I graduated from college in the late 90s, and it was during the tech boom, that ran from 99 to 2003, 2004, right before the recession, crapped everything out, the savings loan stuff in 2004. And late 90s, early 2000s, if you graduated from school, they were throwing money at people during the tech boom. If you were able to build pets.com, there was some guy, there was some woman in the business here, just build it. And I knew people who were graduating and getting paid $50,000 in a month for a website that took them 2 weekends with some Red Bull, and now I feel bad for my students because I'm like, dude, you are really graduating in the shittiest of timelines. We weren't in that situation, and I don't know when it's going to get any better. It's really, it's hard to see. And the financial burden, the psychological burden. I have another good friend of mine, Dr. Patton, who focuses on these kinds of issues, child welfare and everything else like that. When kids aren't in school, we don't get reports about domestic violence.
Huge issue.
Yeah, we don't get reports about, sexual abuse. Teachers are the first line of defense in protecting minors, and now no one is seeing that kid. I mean, it's a lot, man. It's really, really, really upsetting. And I think that we're not going to know the full consequences of what we're not seeing for probably another 2 or 3 years before things open up again.
Yeah. It's a really important point, and one that can't be made enough. My mom was a public school teacher, and and I still didn't quite realize how much they were on the front line. People always talk about, child protection services, or that, somebody is going to call CPS because they notice abuse, but you can't notice abuse if you're really not out in public. Right. And people, because everybody's so stressed out and concerned, I mean, there tends to probably be even more abuse, I'm guessing, than normal. So
the abuse, the alcoholism, just the depression, the anxiety. I mean, it's been hard for me, and I'm a regular working adult with income, right? I'm not home every day with a frustrated 15-year-old, who's like, Dad, I can't go anywhere. Dad, I can't go anywhere. Dad, when am I going to, like, the 15-year-olds are hard enough when you don't have a pandemic.
I have a 15-year-old daughter, and one of the weirdest things is, like, there's always this stupid, I think, sexist idea that, men protecting their daughters. Like, it has always really bothered me a lot as the father of daughters. And it's like, no, teach your kids right, role model right behavior, and hopefully they'll be able to take care of themselves, because you're not going to be there when they're sexually assaulted. What are you, fucking Batman, the Punisher, going to show up later? But the point is, I am having to say to my daughter, I'm like, listen, you got to think about before you hook up with a boy. Because I'm not worried. Like, I'm not worried about my daughter's judgment about the boy. I'm not worried about her being assaulted. I can't live in that fear. But I don't want her to. I don't want anybody to be kissing people that hasn't been quarantined. Like, kissing is a serious. Yes. And what a horrible. Imagine being a 15, a 16-year-old kid, just discovering yourself sexually and everything, and that the thrill of and the passion of that first kiss and all that, and you can't. You have to be worried about that. I mean, there's always been STDs, but not for, like, kissing.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there has been. I mean, there's you could get mono. You could get. But I mean, you know what I mean. Everybody knows what I'm saying.
Yeah. And the crazy part is, like, it's funny. I see all these ads pop up, like, on my Facebook or whatever. Sometimes I see them too, but especially on my Facebook, it's like all these dating apps are going nuts during the pandemic. And I literally saw a commercial where it was like people on a virtual date and they were showing pictures of each other's houses. I was like, that's not freaking human contact, right? Like, I'm not interested in virtually dating anybody. That's not compelling to me. That's not interesting to me. But you literally take fundamental risks. I was talking to a cousin of mine who's in medical school up in New York, and I was like, okay, so, how are things? I was checking on her. She's the sweetest kid. And she's like, yeah, I've been, like, going on virtual dates with guys. And she's like, but it's weird because, like, after one date, and I will say this, she is my cousin. She's beautiful. She's absolutely beautiful. And she's like, but after, like, one date, they want to come over. And I'm like, it's New York. Like, you're not, like, New York is dangerous. I don't want you coming into my building. I don't know if you've been tested. And I was joking with her because I said, prior to the pandemic, people just considered regular STD testing to be like, you look clean. you look like you won't give me anything. Yeah. But now you've got something that could kill you.
Or somebody else in your house. Yeah.
Or somebody else in your house.
I also feel particularly bad for people who are really good looking in the eyes only.
Yeah.
Because it's very misleading. Once you take that mask off and the rest of their face and the rest of their face, the whole grill is all kinds of messed up. You're like, I was really misled by your beautiful eyes and eyebrows.
Yes. I can tell you, I was in the grocery store 2 days ago. I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone, and I was like, I said, this is, you see attractive people because you're actually, the other thing is you're outdoors so rarely now, right? Yeah. Like you go to freaking Safeway and you're like, you feel like you're on the catwalk. It's like, oh my God, everyone's so beautiful. You're just trapped at home. And so I was joking with a friend of mine, and I said, it's interesting because everybody's got these masks on. It's like those old Bugs Bunny cartoons where, like, the person looks beautiful and then they take off the veil. You're like, oh,
exactly.
I have no idea. And I was like, and I'm sure someone can think the same about me. It's like, he looks kind of cute, but I don't know what his face actually looks like. It's this weird thing. And I actually asked a friend of mine, who's Muslim, who's, spent time in the Middle East. And I was like, dude, like, what's that like? I mean, and I have friends who are Muslim who are abroad, and he's like, here's the thing, man. He's like, you don't date over there. the way you do here.
Right,
So it doesn't matter.
Right. That's a good point. It's funny. I asked a friend of mine who's a ninja, and
and then you turned and he was just gone. And you were like, dude, I'm not done asking the question.
Actually, yes. Yes. You know him. Wajahat Ali. A lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know. He's a ninja.
He's a ninja.
He disappears.
That makes sense. I asked him questions. He's gone. He's gone. And it's just a shuriken with a note or like an arrow in my wall with a piece of paper tied to it. I'll see you next Thursday.
We have to get him to join us the next time to explain how he does that.
That would be
He'll never tell. He'll never
reveal. And you know what? I can only imagine you don't really want him to come over because when he does disappear, he leaves that puff of smoke. And then it's just like,
it's problematic.
It takes forever to get that whole thing out. The fire alarm goes off.
Well, the last time he did it, he awkwardly came back. It's like, sorry about that. And I was like, quit coughing, Waj. What are you doing? He's like, and then he disappeared again.
Right. He just turned left. It's terrible.
Speaking of disappeared, let's segue now. He disappeared from CNN. They ended his contract. We talked about that publicly on the show. You disappeared from MSNBC for a long time. Let's talk about, I'm not saying that that's cancel culture, but we've been talking about that a lot this week. And I guess, Waj had a great Twitter thread, which again, I think,
it's really good. And it's really good.
My kind of, let me just ask you this. Do you know any black people or people of color who are really screaming about and worried about being canceled? Of course, this week we had, the controversy surrounding Nick Cannon, saying some stuff, some anti-Semitic, crazy stuff. I didn't read all the comments, but it seems like more of a white concern. Obviously, Barry Weiss making a huge splash. I've been talking about it every day this week. So do you know, I'm sure there are plenty of, but who are the black folks, the people of color that this is a big concern for them being canceled?
So this is the thing, like there was a really good tweet about this that I saw like a couple weeks ago where they're like, we've always had cancel culture. It's just called networking, and white people would just lock you out of things, right? which is true.
Or not let you in, lock you out, not let you in, or you get in, but it's like, I don't know. I'm not going to explain it when you're here.
But they don't tell you where the real meeting is, right? Like you keep getting told. You keep getting told the meeting's at 4, and you came into work early. It's like, well, why is everybody? What's going on?
You're hired. Well, do I get a desk? Yeah, just fine. Find one.
You're downstairs in the basement, like office space.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things with that. So one, I don't really think there's a real cancel culture. I think cancel culture is our new millennium way of complaining about PC culture that we did in the 90s, right? You had all these right-wing conservatives who are like, oh my God, I can't believe there's this PC, which means I can't, call Asian people whatever I want. I can't make myself say Asian. I can't make myself say black. Well, dude, it's not that complicated, right? Like learn the words that you have to use. And I'll give you an example of that real quick. This actually happened to me. I literally learned from one of my students, some of my LGBTQA students about like to use the term intersex. I didn't know that that's the proper term to use. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like when people tell you how they want to be addressed, then you just do it, right? So cancel culture, I think, is this new thing where you have, it's not necessarily just conservatives, but people who are in power, who have been used to getting away with whatever they want, are terrified of the democratization of opinion that has come from the internet. It used to be if you wrote an obnoxious or offensive article in the New York Post or the New York Times, who cares? The only people you were going to hear from are people who wrote the newspaper, right? The only people you're going to hear from are people who may call the newspaper and who's reading your column, right? It's no big deal. But because of social media, because of Facebook, because of Instagram, and because of Twitter, if you say something that people have a problem with, they want to criticize, they can go after you now. And they can say, you know what, that sucks. And I think if you have this platform, you should be more responsible. And so I think that's what people are afraid of. People in power are afraid of actually being held accountable for what their words may actually mean. And I'll add to that this. I don't know anybody who's been canceled. I don't know anybody who, I don't know anyone who the far left came after who is suddenly, Louis C.K. is still making money. You know, Aziz Ansari is still making money, and I think they did completely different things. But Aziz Ansari is still making money. Like, find me the person. Mel Gibson is still making money.
Yeah, but you just named 3 entertainers, and let's put Mel Gibson aside because he's an actor, and I think there's a difference between actors and comedians for sure.
Right.
And he said, you know, stuff that got on tape, and it wasn't like. I just think it's different, and I want to talk with comedians about this, but I want to ask you about it as well. But you know, this idea of a comedian, forget about the transgressions of Louis C.K. or Aziz Ansari in their private lives, or you know, sexual harassment, or what you know, the things that they did and admitted to doing, but on stage, cultural appropriation stuff. I'm uncomfortable with the kind of some of the direction that some of that is taking. If I'm a white male straight comedian and I'm telling a story about a man that I had an interaction with who is Indian American, let's say, and when I tell the story, I do both sides. I say, so I said to the guy, you know, help me understand what the issue is in your marriage. And now I'll do the accent, right? And maybe people will get upset with me, but I'll do the accent, which would be something like, my marriage is very, very complex. My wife is a beautiful woman and I love her very much, but sometimes we have issues. Like my point of what I'm saying is I'm doing an accent for this guy, but I'm not putting him down. He's actually being very eloquent, vulnerable, and thoughtful in what he's saying as I'm relaying the story. I'm not punching down. There's something about storytelling and performing where you embody different characters. Well, what if that character has an accent? As a white guy, can I not do that accent? Because, you know, so I feel like if it's not putting someone down, I can't do a British accent. I can't do an Asian accent. If I'm not making fun of them, if it's not a stereotype. And I wonder, like, I don't think I'm open to being wrong. I'll do whatever people, you know, the vast majority of people of color, minorities say. I'm always, you know, thinking that way, I think. But I feel that one's uncomfortable to me. We can't do characters anymore.
And here's the thing, and this goes to this thing that happened recently, because this happened since the last time we talked, with like white voices for black characters, right? And that whole controversy with Big Mouth and some of these other shows. So I'm of this thought.
No, I don't know that. I don't know white voices for black characters.
Yeah. So there's a new show called Central Park on Apple TV. And it's about a biracial family. And Kristen Bell was voicing the daughter, who is a biracial black girl. And in the midst of all of these discussions, animated. And so in the midst of all this, you know, these sort of racial reckoning that we're having, Kristen Bell stepped down and she's like, look, like this should actually be voiced by a biracial or a black girl. I'm stepping down from this role. And then Jenny Slate stepped down from voicing Missy on Big Mouth. And she's like, look, you know, I always kind of had a weird feeling about this. I'm playing this biracial black girl. And so there's this discussion of like, should white voice actors be doing these black characters? Here's my general feeling about this. And this also goes say with like the Jimmy Kimmel and the blackface. I don't know if you remember this, but Daryl Hammond used to do a hilarious impression of Jesse Jackson.
Yeah, I know Daryl. Yeah.
It was freaking hilarious.
Yeah, he's a master impressionist. Yeah.
Yeah. It was in no way offensive. And he obviously put on a little face paint, but it wasn't a gollywog, right? It wasn't white chocolates and it wasn't cork on his skin, right? He was trying to play Jesse Jackson, and I thought it was hilarious. Yeah. I thought it was funny, and it was well-intentioned. I didn't even have a problem. I don't know why people are pretending they're discovering. I remember when Jimmy Kimmel used to do the Karl Malone impression. I thought it was funny. Karl Malone or Charles Barkley are kind of caricatures in and of themselves. So, like, if you're doing it in good faith, if you're doing it as an impressionist, right, I generally don't have that kind of issue with it, because I think there's a difference in I'm not playing a stereotype of a black person. I'm playing this particular famous person who has attributes that I'm playing up because that's what everybody thinks is funny.
I saw a montage of comedians, white comedians, overwhelmingly doing black voices over the years.
Yeah.
And, Robin Williams doing a black guy. Hey, bro. I can't even do it very well. But it was, I was like, okay, fine. We're moving on. Maybe we're moving on because maybe those are too stereotypical and maybe they're derogatory and maybe it's like, not. I can understand why somebody might be offended by some of that, but I'm splitting hairs in that if I'm doing an accent, if it's me, Pete Dominic, performing, and I'm doing the accent of the person I talked to, and I'm replaying the conversation we had, and I'm not making fun of them. Maybe I'm making fun of myself.
Exactly. And that's why I agree with you, Pete, because I think these things are situational, right? I think I'll give you an example of something that I thought of and I felt some kind of way about it. Because I've obviously, I've heard white comedians and they do a black accent. I'm like, you're kind of being an ass. I don't appreciate that. Some of them I've had, but I've heard like John Mulaney do it. And it's funny because John Mulaney, like the way he does it, it's obviously not making fun of that person. I remember Trevor Noah doing African-American accents. And I think it was one of his early comedy shows where he was like, when he first met Black Americans, because he's like, I was so excited to meet Black Americans. I've grown up of consuming Black American culture. And he had such an over-the-top Black American voice. And my first reaction was like, but I was like, but Trevor's doing this. I mean, he's not from here.
Yeah, well, I think the point there is, I guess, if it has to be good. So I'll do a joke. I'll do this joke. You tell me how you feel. Let's play.
Okay.
This is a joke that I did for years. The premise of the joke basically is that the one group of people, the one category of people I won't ever I'll argue with everybody. I'll argue with anybody anywhere except for black women. I don't argue with black women. Okay.
I'm a black guy and I know better than that.
So I'm good so far. Like, is anybody, I don't know if maybe that's offensive. Maybe I'm somehow taking agency away, but okay. So I come back to my car and this police officer is writing me a ticket and it's a black woman. But I said, I still argued. She puts her hand in my face and she says, stop. I have heard it all. That's the joke. So, but I do her voice. I don't think I can do that joke anymore. Granted, nobody's doing stand-up anymore, but where are we? Where am I?
I don't, it's weird, Pete, because it's just so situational. It's so situational. Like, I don't think I could have a hard and fast rule. I think if I was watching you, if I didn't know you, right, and I do know you, but if I was just watching you on stage, one, I have a threshold. I have a different kind of threshold when it comes to comedians, right? I'm like, I'm paying to hear you make me laugh.
I think everybody should have a different threshold coming to comedy. I think I think it's situational. Comedians saying a thing is different than the mayor, the principal, the chief of police, your mother, your father. It's different. Right. There's a clear intention. I'm trying to make you laugh. That doesn't make it okay. But I'm not a thought leader per se when I'm doing stand-up. Some comedians obviously are huge thought leaders, but and I'd like to be to some extent sometimes. But go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no. And that's the thing. It's like, I may not like things that Joe Rogan says. We can go old school. I may have not liked things that Andrew Dice Clay said. But you know what? He's not, like you said, he's not the mayor. He's not in charge of policy. Unless you have policy control over my life, if I don't like your comedy, I just won't watch you. Now, what I can do, let's say like Roseanne, right? I can say, hey, large platform entity, you are giving a platform to this person who is saying things that I don't like. And therefore, I'm going to tell you, I have a problem with that. That, I think, is fundamentally different. If I'm going to a comedy club and I don't like what you have to say, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to not come back, right? If I think your joke is offensive, and I've been to all sorts of comedy clubs and I've heard people perform, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad and sometimes it goes on the edge. I've gone and seen Paul Mooney a ton of times, right? He used to come to Cleveland. Paul goes there, right? And you're like, geez, dude, can you really say that? But at the same time, it's like, well, Jay, that's what you paid for, So I've always had that attitude towards comedians because I think they are, and they're supposed to push the envelope. Now, when Dave Chappelle did Sticks and Stones, right, and he was complaining about cancel culture and that sort of thing, I kind of felt like, you're Dave Chappelle, okay? You didn't lose anything. You just don't like that some people are criticizing your humor. But you didn't lose any money. You're not disinvited from any parties. You're not this, that, or the other. And so, now you sound like the people who we complain about. And I still like Dave Chappelle.
Well, that special, there were some things I hated. Mm-hmm. But there were other things that I loved.
They were hilarious. Yes.
And that's how I generally look at art, music, mm-hmm. comedy. Like that song on the album, didn't like that song. I can't talk about music more than that. But with comedy, and so like the idea of canceling someone because you didn't like the one joke or I think what you're saying is there has to be nuance and it has to be situational. So, by the way, Paul Mooney doing stand-up comedy, someone should pitch a show where he's doing stand-up often in front of white audiences, and the camera should only be on the white audience.
Right. Oh my God.
Yes. It's the most uncomfortable thing for white people. They're like, I did not expect this. I'm not a part of that belief system. It's really good.
I saw Paul Mooney like over the span of 5 years. I saw him, I think, 4 times in Cleveland. He would come to the Improv in Cleveland because Cleveland used to be a great stand-up. It's
performed there. Yeah, they have a great club there now. Hilarities.
Yeah. So I saw him perform there, and it was white people who were coming to the audience. I was like, so you were coming here for basically like Paul Mooney to throw acid in your face. For a hot 37 seconds.
I don't know. I wonder if some of them, I always feel like people they're surprised because he goes out there.
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask you about this controversy this week with Nick Cannon. And this is a complicated one. It's a really interesting thing to talk about. And I'm sure scholars have written and talked about this for years. Mm-hmm. the oppression Olympics or, levels of discrimination, black people and Jewish people specifically. There's a long history there. And it's interesting to see kind of people taking sides here. And they're, Nick Cannon makes these comments that I guess they were kind of old that this got dug up. But then coming to his defense are Diddy and Dwayne Wade and a couple of others. And then now people are, criticizing them for defending him. What's your take on this? And I probably should have more context in terms of what Nick Cannon said. But what are your thoughts?
So, and it's funny also that you mentioned Dwayne Wade, because remember, Dwayne Wade has become a hero. Because remember, cancel culture is supposedly the far left world canceling people on the right or in the center for not acquiescing with their social justice warrior agenda. And yet you've got Dwayne Wade, who is a guy who has been praised for being one of the best 25 best athletes of all time in the NBA, who, despite coming out of this ultra masculine sport, has always been comfortable in sort of gender bending clothing, right? I mean, he'll wear fingernail polish, he'll wear capris. He's like, so what? I don't care. I'm Dwayne Wade. I fashion. And he has a son who is queer. And he has praised his son and shown up at pride rallies. So I love the complexity of it, because the guy who is being praised for being so progressive on gender issues within his own family is, caping for someone who said something crazy and anti-Semitic. My thought is this about Nick Cannon. One, I don't know. I can't be comfortable with anybody who wears a silly hat like he was wearing. It doesn't make any sense. It looked like Karnak the Great. It looked really weird. The old Johnny Carson reference.
I mean, commit to a turban, go all out. But I don't know what that hat is, but it makes me uncomfortable. Right? Yeah.
I was like, you're not Sikh, right? So I don't really know what you're trying to do here. But all that being said, it's like, dude, and I'm going to let you. This conversation is within regular black folk. First off, we're like, you had on Professor Griff Professor Griff, Chuck D thought Professor Griff was too racist in like 1990. Okay, Professor Griff has been on a level of what we call hotepery for a long time, and so to dig him up and put him on the show, and for them to be talking about Frances Cress Welsing, who wrote a book called The ISIS Papers, which is a whole rabbit hole that like only Black people of a certain age know about. Like we looked at Nick Cannon's like, dude, what are you doing? How did you not know this was going to happen? How did you not know Professor Griff was going to say something racist and anti-Semitic? Like, you're crazy for even having brought this man on the show.
What about, why can I not think of, what's his name? The Muslim Black leader who has been...
Farrakhan?
Farrakhan. I mean, yeah. What are your thoughts on him?
So this is my thing. This is my thing about Farrakhan. Louis Farrakhan, now, I could potentially get in trouble for this, but there's a lot of people who believe that Farrakhan had something to do. There are people who believe he had something to do
killing Malcolm X. Yeah,
with killing Malcolm X. So
I thought that was. I'm sorry, but I thought that was fairly clear. No,
I mean, like having something to do with or knowing about it there's a wide range, right? So we don't know. We know he didn't kill him, right? So I can say this about Farrakhan. He says some things that are obviously anti-Semitic. He says some things that are racist. Like, everybody knows that. The issue that I've always had with Farrakhan is that for a long time, Black politicians, they were all required to condemn Farrakhan before they were allowed to speak on a national stage. If you saw them on the Sunday talk shows, it was like, well, what about these statements from Farrakhan? Will you condemn like it was required? And it was like, why do I have to condemn Farrakhan? Obviously, he said something anti-Semitic. I'm not in favor of that. There you go. Why are white politicians not required to condemn David Duke? Why were they not required to condemn some of the things that Pat Buchanan said? That's the thing that Black people were angry about. Nobody was defending Farrakhan for being an anti-Semite. Nobody was defending that. What people were mad about is that Black people were required to condemn him almost as if that was a pass to be in public discourse. And that's the part that seemed unfair because white politicians and thought leaders weren't required to do so. No one's defending Farrakhan and the problematic, racist, offensive, sometimes sexist, anti-Semitic stuff he says. Nobody's defending that. It's crazy.
I permission to throw Farrakhan out? I mean, at this point, do we not have enough amazing young Black leaders? Do we need does the Black movement, liberation movement, Black Lives Matter movement, however you want to name it, need Louis Farrakhan anymore? Isn't he doing far more damage than help?
But I think the other thing is this, Louis Farrakhan. So you go back to the Million Man March, which was 20 something years ago, right? And some people had a problem with Louis Farrakhan running the Million Man March. And we forget a lot of people were at the Million Man March. Will Smith was at the Million Man March. Denzel Washington was at the. You can have problematic people be a part of larger discussions, right? Like it's like Van Jones. If you want to work with Donald Trump because you think that's going to help in criminal justice reform, yes, we know that Donald Trump is racist. But if you think that there's a goal that you can accomplish with him, okay, right? Like that's how you have to look at these. Sometimes it's pragmatic, right? And some people had pragmatic reasons for working with Farrakhan. I think what's important, though, is that we have moved, fortunately, in public discourse to a time where the notion of a Black leader has finally been thrown into the dustbin of history. Louis Farrakhan is the head of the Nation of Islam. That's all he represents. And that's not to dismiss that, but that's the organization that he represents. T.D. Jakes represents his church. He doesn't represent all Christians or all Black Christians or all anything else like that. And what has happened with social justice movements today, with Black Lives Matter and Campaign Zero and everything else like that, is that people realize you can't have a successful movement that is a charismatic movement, because what happens? The leader gets killed. The leader gets killed. The leader gets assassinated. The leader dies. the leader is disgraced in some way, they have a personal failing, and then the entire movement falls apart. That's why people are like, no, there is no leader of Black Lives Matter. We all love, William Barber, right? William Barber is amazing in North Carolina. He's not the Black leader. Opal Tometi, Brittany Packnett, Alicia Garza, they're all awesome. They started Black Lives Matter. None of them would tell you, Brittany is actually with Campaign Zero now, but none of them would say, I'm the leader of the Blacks. None of them would even say, I'm the leader of the LGBT Black queer community. And I think there's a benefit to that now. And that people like Professor Griff, who are still in this notion that leadership has to be charismatic and often has to be male, they're wrong. They're wrong. You can have a mass movement. I can't tell you who's in charge of Black Lives Matter DC, but they still got that. They still got a mural in front of the White House.
Yeah, really well said, except for the part where you use the phrase "the Blacks." I feel like that's always wrong. That always makes me go.
To say that.
I don't even think
to say the Blacks.
Go ahead, say it again. Use it differently in a way that that sounds good. I still feel like the Blacks. Something about the Blacks.
That's just my neighbors, the Blacks.
That's not what we were talking about. That doesn't count. They could be an Asian family, for goodness sake.
The Blacks are so loud. It's just they're always throwing parties. The Blacks are always leaving garbage on the front porch.
That is so racist. No, I'm talking about a white family that lives next door to me that launches fireworks all the time.
Well, it's like the Chappelle sketch with the N-word family.
Oh, God, yes. So much. So also this week, or maybe it was last week, what's going on with the NBA and putting slogans? The NBA has gone really far into, what's the word that you would describe it?
Social justice.
It's kind of really fascinating to see this league, and it makes me think that a lot more than what I even thought of their money comes from Black people. That's the only thing I can think of. Obviously, the vast majority of players are Black, but I feel like in certain cities and certain teams, maybe the vast majority of fans are paying ticket holders might be Black, maybe Atlanta, maybe Washington. Probably not Washington, but it seems weird to see one of the top 3 professional sports leagues go so far. What am I missing? And is it good because Charles Barkley this week is saying he thinks it's a little bit too much with the social justice stuff. Right.
So Charles Barkley had problems with protests in Ferguson. So his politics are his own politics. But I will say this about the NBA. It is the blackest of leagues, right? Of all the top 3 leagues, it's the blackest one.
NHL is
I mean, they're trying. They had Jerome McGinley. They had PK Subban. And by the way, and I know I'm one of the only people who can tell you multiple Black players' names.
That was impressive. Right off the cuff.
Oh yeah, I watched PK Subban because I was supporting him and the Predators, and then they traded him after they got to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Wow.
But here's the thing: it's the blackest league, not just as far as the talent on the court, but as far as even executives and coaches, right? There's more team executives and trainers and everything else like that. Here is my feeling about it. You can't say Black Lives Matter if you are putting your majority Black league into an environment that is going to be dangerous for their health. You just can't say that. And it's like saying you can't say you love your kids, right, and then beat them. You can't say you love your wife and then be abusive to her or allow her to be in danger, or your husband or your partner for that matter. And so they're sending them to Orlando, which is the second biggest hotspot for COVID, right? Florida that had 10,000 cases last Wednesday, then 15,000 new COVID cases on Saturday. And you're going to put a group of 1,400 people between players, staff, doctors. You're going to put them in a bubble in Disney for 2.5 months. And you say, no, people are going to get sick. And we don't know what the long-term consequences of COVID are. We don't know what kind of neurological damage. What ends up happening if you're a player? Because as of right now, COVID is still considered a non-sports related injury. So if you catch COVID while you're in the bubble, they could cancel your contract. So as far as the logos and stuff on the back, because LeBron is I ain't really putting a logo on there. Anthony Davis, I'm really putting a logo in here because it doesn't freaking matter. because turning myself into an advertisement for whatever cause that I care about, you've always been able to do that. But that's not going to change the game. That's not going to change the structure. And I'll say this because I'm a big basketball fan. I'm a sports fan. I wrote an article about this for the Grio like a week ago. I get that people want to play. I get that there's money at stake. If you actually gave a crap about these players, if you cared about Black Lives Matter, you can do all that stuff, right? But how about you do some practical things like, I don't know, stop contracting with the local police department for your security. How about that if you care about Black Lives Matter? How about spending some of the millions of dollars that you're spending on testing the players and offer free testing in the local community? How about you do something like that? How about you do something about the number of Black executives and Black ownership in the league? Like, these are the things that really matter if you give a shit about Black lives. And at the end of the day, they really ought to just cut it down. Instead of having 22 teams, they should cut it down to the Final Four. Because if you only had 4 teams, it would be much easier to keep people safe. If they said, we're going to have the NBA finals and we're just going to have, the divisional, the conference, and the finals, we're only going to have 8 teams here. It's only going to be 200 people. We think we can keep them safe. I'd be like, go for it. But 22 teams and 1,400 people, you don't care about them. You'll sacrifice their lives and their health for money. And that's not Black Lives Matter.
But so basically what you're also saying is, regardless of the point, not regardless, that was a good point about, if you care about Black lives, then don't put them in danger in terms of the pandemic. Don't make them play in a bubble. But what you're saying is that you agree with the players or the critics who say a slogan on the back of your jersey doesn't do as much as actual action, not words. That seems to be, by the way, kind of like an important refrain in this movement and probably the history of social movements. Actions, not words, especially from leaders. You can say you're in solidarity with blank, and you can act that way and be friendly towards and so on. But really, policy changes are what makes a difference. Is that? And
I agree with you. And here's the thing:
investments.
Yes, if you want to wear something on the back of your jersey, I'm cool with that, right? But I'm saying that is not enough from a league that is composed of 32 billionaires. There ain't nobody who owns an NBA team who's just a millionaire. They're all billionaires. So you got 32 billionaires that own these teams. And you think that your commitment to social justice is letting one of your players wear something on the back of their shirt? That doesn't mean a dang thing. There are so many other things that you can do. And it's a bunch of pre-approved messages. It's kind of like when somebody at the office comes by and is like, all right, look, this is the card that we're handing around to give to Steve for his birthday. You don't really care, right? You just would sign in the card.
I thought you said car. I'm like, what kind of office is giving Steve a car?
Steve is a really nice guy.
Wow, he
brings bagels and donuts for everybody on Friday, so he deserved the Nissan Maxima.
Wow,
which is not
Nissan Maxima.
Yeah,
it's a 93, to be fair.
Yeah, it's 93. As somebody who just bought a car, like, all these things are on my mind right now. It was quite, like, I think I told you, like, I had a car accident earlier. I was hit in the middle of the pandemic. I had to go car shopping in the pandemic. It's insane.
I might have to too. Our cars are on their very last legs. Everything is weird during the pandemic. Like, the accident must have been weird. Like, I've thought about that. What if I got in an accident and I got to, when we went away a couple weeks ago, I mean, everything you'd have to put on your mask. And I mean, if everybody wasn't hurt, even then is weird, much less going to shop for a new car. Like, every single experience is so weird and unique.
And so I want to tell the audience here, Pete didn't just go on vacation. He sent out these flex photos. He texted me of him on the beach, like, giving me a thumbs up and shit. So, like, he had to make sure that everybody knew he was on vacation while the rest of us commoners are trapped in our homes.
Well, hold on a second. You just got done talking to me about how you've been traveling all over the place.
I had to go see my mom. My mom wasn't doing well. I had to go see family.
That's North Carolina. But didn't you go to Atlanta? Did you go to Atlanta?
Yeah, but I only went to Atlanta for a day. It was terrifying. Because they just don't believe in COVID there. It was so nuts.
In Atlanta?
In Atlanta. And trust me, I was surprised by that because, we know Brian Kemp is a crazy guy and he stole the job and he shouldn't be the governor, should be Stacey. But, he has been.
But Atlanta's not Georgia.
Well, you would think so. But I was so shocked at, so I went and stayed in this hotel. It was in this neighborhood called Vinings, which is like a nice, semi kind of wealthy neighborhood just sort of north of Atlanta. first off, my concierge at the hotel, she didn't have a mask. The bartender at the hotel, they didn't have a mask. The cleaning people, they didn't have masks. When I came to the hotel and I said, hey, can you please make sure that my room has been cleaned and that no one's been in it within 24 hours? Because I don't want to go in a room that they checked out at 11 and I'm coming in at 3, right? And I don't know if it's been cleaned or COVID or whatever it is. And the woman looked at me, she's like, I mean, we can do that, but why? And I said, because of COVID? And she's like, oh. And I'm like, I'm wearing a mask. Pete, I walk across the street from the place. There was
By the way,
bar.
the name of the hotel is the COVID-19. You should have known. You should have probably known they were going to be.
I kind of thought about that. And I was like, is that French? Like, I say, is it COVID? Is it COVID-19? I didn't know.
So you walked across the street.
I go across the street. There's a bar. People are drinking inside. They're drinking outside. They're playing cornhole. They're all crammed around each other. There's a Chinese food restaurant across. It's one of my favorite, Chinese/Thai places. I go in, people are eating inside, which is insane. And I see this older couple come out. Now, this older white couple, seniors. The woman has a cane. As she's coming by the door, she pulls up a napkin and she says to the woman in the store, she's like, oh my gosh, these napkins are so beautiful, so well designed. I could totally make a mask out of these. And then she walks out and I'm like, you are a living comorbidity. You are obviously a woman, in her 60s or 70s. You're walking with a cane. You wanted to eat inside a restaurant with poor ventilation. I mean, but I saw that all throughout Atlanta. I was surprised. And I compare that to Baltimore, where, or I live in Maryland, where everybody's got a mask. And that was made law on April, May 1st.
Same here.
Everybody wears a mask.
In New York.
Yeah.
It's interesting because this is for our whole careers and our whole lives, we've been paying attention to and talking about cultural differences and how they play out and obviously the problems that they create and obviously the beautiful, richness that they create as well. But like this is really interesting how we are culturally divided on public health standards. And it would seem that the next few months, I mean, you look at a state like New York, or it's the only one I can think of at the moment that had it very bad and has to some extent recovered, flattened the curve, et cetera.
Right.
And you wonder how we're going to prevent ourselves from ever going back to that place if it's even possible. And seeing as that we lived through it, we're all now, basically following the rules as much as we can. But there will be pockets of ignorance and places that don't, and that's a problem. But this cultural divide that we've always talked about that I'm referring to is now down to basically masks and social distancing. And what it means is this virus will likely thrive in places that are more ignorant to science and medicine. And it's a sad but fascinating look at the cultural divide that we've talked about for so long. I don't have a question. I just want to think, what do you think of that?
I agree with you. And I can go even deeper. So when I was traveling, I was going to visit my mother. My mother had gotten sick and I was just going to check on her. And I talked to some of her and her friends about their churches and the fact that their churches in North Carolina, and I can relate this because no one knows my mother's name or what church she goes to or whatever. But she talked about the
Barbara Comstock, and it's
and she's
Southern
at 444 Wake Forest Avenue in Durham.
I'll drop that from the taping. Go ahead.
So, but she was talking about how at her church and several of her friends that the pastor was like, and it's a majority white church, right? This is also interesting because we usually our whole lives we've gone to majority white church. It's a majority white church, but it's just a majority white church, and the pastor was like, there are people who refuse to wear masks. They literally, it is a religious issue for them. They refuse to, and this is an educated suburb, and they won't do it. They won't do it. They think masks are terrible, et cetera, et cetera. And you have the black population of the church who's like, what the hell are you talking about? Black people are dying at a higher rate from this disease than white people are. You don't care about us. First off, you reopen this church indoors. And second, if you allow other people to not wear masks. And the pastor actually suggested, he's like, well, how about this? How about we'll have one section of the church for people who don't want to wear masks and one section church with people. It's like, what are you talking about?
You need two different churches.
Yes, because I don't think the virus is going to care. And so, like, yeah, Pete, like,
well, isn't your mother to blame for going for a mostly white church? What the hell's that all about to begin with?
Trust me, I got on her about that one. I do not understand why.
If you're a black, if you're a black person and you go to a white church, what you're saying is, I want to be more bored. That's what you're saying. I'll never forget.
Unseasoned Jesus.
Like I've only been to a black church, I think. Well, twice, once for a wedding, once for a funeral. And it was uncomfortable because I didn't know what people were doing and saying, but it was clearly they were having fun, as opposed to the Catholic church I grew up in, which was terrifying and so boring until my brother and I discovered a man who respirated through his ass, and then we stood behind him every Sunday and we'd watch his ass suck in and out, and that made it entertaining. But that was the very best thing that ever happened at that church.
That is the most disturbing,
super weird thing. Well, everything about that church was disturbing, so that was the best thing. But it's a weird thing for black people to go to a white church. So I'd like to interview your mother about that. Yeah.
It's funny. I should bring her on one. She would love this. I tell people this all the time. Some of my friends and colleagues have met her, like Tiff's met her, Joy has met her. Michael Steele's met my mom. Chris Matthews has met my mother. I get my gift of gab from my mom. My dad is the brainy, super duper brainy, never had to study, show up 2 days before it, show up the day of a test and ace it. My mother was the hardworking, friendly, sociable person. And she loves talking.
Well, we gotta get her a podcast then.
I know.
As long as you,
I don't even want to give her the idea because she'll do it. She'll make me be a guest.
I heard that when your mom met Chris Matthews, even though she's really gabby and talkative, she didn't get a word in. Is that true?
No, she actually did. She actually got a word in with Chris.
Impressive.
Chris was he was quite entertained and abused by my mom, and I'll give him credit for this. I was what had happened is some news had broke. My mother was in town. I was going to go visit her, and some news had broke. And MSNBC was like, "Hey, we really, really want you on set." Back when we could go on set, it must have been sometime last year. We really, really want you on set. And I was like, "Look, I'm going to visit my mom today. She's in town. I get to see her that often." And they're like, "Where's your mom?" And they sent a limo to get my mom to bring her to set. They're like, "We will bring your mom to set if you'll come on the show."
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so my mom got to meet everybody, and it was highly entertaining. My mother's a news watcher. My mother is very politically aware. She has a long and storied and fascinating career.
Dude, I was gonna save it for off the air, but we should do an interview with you and your mom. Me, you, and your mom. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, actually, I will text her right after the show. She would love that.
I think people will love that. All right, let me ask you one more question. You instantly just got anxiety. It's hilarious.
I know. I was like, oh, Jesus.
Is this a good idea, or will this end me?
It's gonna be fun. Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure your mic is off. Anyway, so I wanted to ask you one more thing, which is, so Joy Reid now has gotten it's official. She's gotten a 7 p.m. slot, which was Chris Matthews. And I've never been a Chris Matthews fan. And but Joy is the one who, off the record, and I think it's fair to talk about, would talk about how good he was to her of the people there. So for those people that might be wondering about, Chris Matthews gets canned and Joy takes over the 7 p.m. slot, how does Chris Matthews feel? I think probably he had something, he probably put a good word in. He always, they have a good relationship. So I think that's beside the point. What does this mean that you have a black woman in prime time, period, much less with 100 days left before 100 or so before the election? What does it mean?
It's fantastic for Joy. Joy deserves it. She's fantastic at her job. And I like her personally. I like her professionally. I think what it also speaks to is the new leadership at MSNBC. There's a new president there, Cesar Conde. He's made it very clear that he wants to have 50% of all the staff and people in front or behind the camera to be black and people of color and women. Like he's very, very committed to that. I think that Joy getting this position is a part of that. I look forward. I'm going to be on her show on Monday. So, her premiere show. I'm actually.
I don't even know that. Does it start this coming Monday?
Yeah, it starts this. Yeah. So Read Out starts on Monday, 7 p.m. Her last AM Joy is going to be Saturday. So I'm on her last show Saturday. I'm on her first new show on Monday. I'm extremely excited about it. And this is also what it says. And we're having this time, racial reckoning in media. You know, she is, I think, the first Black woman to have a primetime cable network show. The first one, right? For all these years we've had CNN and CNN has been around, I think, since the late 70s. MSNBC and Fox started in the late 90s. But that is huge and that is significant. And we need to see more of that. And it needs to not just be an issue of, Blacks coming after Blacks, right? Or Asians coming after Asians or women coming after women. The fact that Chris Matthews, is no longer doing hardball and his replacement as a Black woman is also a reminder of we don't have to do tokenism. She deserved that spot. She's fantastic and she's capable and she's talented. And so I'm extremely excited for her. I think empowering her in that position is going to be really important for public discourse going forward. And I hope that other networks follow suit. I would love to see Laura Coates have her own show on CNN.
I'm against that. I'm against it.
He's vehemently against it.
It's terrible.
But Laura is fantastic. I would like to see Tiffany have an opportunity. I mean, there are so many
Tiffany Cross.
Yeah, Tiffany Cross. There's so many important critical voices. The Latinx community. We need more Latinx people. We're in America, for goodness gracious sake. And Alicia Menendez, I think, is the only sort of, primetime host. And if there's someone I'm missing, please don't attack Peter.
She's not even a primetime host, is she? Just on weekends in the afternoons or something. But
she's got the weekend. She just started. But I mean, she came from Fusion, Alicia Menendez.
I met her at Huffington Post TV, live.
Yes, and Huffington Post. So
but she's also I'm not taking anything away from her. I love Alicia, but her dad is a U.S. senator. It's my point being, and I'm not taking anything from Alicia. She is awesome on her own merits, but it certainly doesn't it doesn't hurt to have people in high places to help you with the prominence and so on. And it's we need to give more opportunities, create more opportunities for people that don't necessarily have those connections. We need to do the work to go find those people, and not only those on-air people, but it matters so much to have the editorial and producers that are women and people of color, and to get that point of view that just is so dominated by white folks, well-meaning white folks, even, but they just miss things all the time.
I would say this, and I want to
miss things.
And I want to make sure I say this in defense of Alicia Menendez. Mm-hmm. I don't think many people even know that. I really don't. She has worked her way up from Fusion. She's had multiple shows in different locations. And because of the route that she took, I give her a lot of credit for that. If we're not talking about the Bush twins, right? we're not talking about.
I'm not saying that. Yeah, kids. I'm not saying she traded on her name at all. I'm just. Yeah. I didn't trade on my name either, but I had opportunities because of my dad. He got me a painting job when I was 16, and I was immediately fired after a day of work. But he helped me get the job. I'm saying, if you don't have someone to help you, we should just. We should work harder to try to find those people, to be scouts, if you will, to find great talent. Especially with people that are new to the country, immigrants that don't know anybody, they're super talented people that they might not know anybody. Find them and help them connect and network is the point I'm trying to make, I guess.
And I want to give that credit to, because this is how we make these changes racially, politically. This is how we end up making that difference. Rachel Maddow brought on Melissa Harris Perry, and Melissa Harris Perry gave us Joy Reid, and Joy Reid, brought on Tiffany Cross and
so many others. All of them brought on so many others too. Yeah.
And so many other people. Yep. Chris Matthews was one, gave Joy an opportunity. Chris Matthews was the first primetime show that I was on MSNBC. Mm. Chris Matthews, I won't say her name, but, he had an African-American woman as his lead booker for years. Mm. So yes, it's people opening up spaces and giving opportunities to those who've previously been marginalized and letting them, come forward and giving them the opportunities to grow, giving them the opportunities to say, all right, look, you made this mistake here, you made this mistake there, but I'm going to let you improve, because there are many, many white people, certainly in all professions, but certainly when we talk about media, who are given multiple opportunities to fail. I'll give this is a classic example, the classic entertainment example. Ryan Reynolds, right? Ryan Reynolds was in so many bombs, and I like Ryan Reynolds as an actor, but they let that man bomb. I mean, R.I.P.
Yeah, but that's not a good example. He's so good looking.
But there's plenty of good looking white dudes.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, that's plenty of opportunities to fail. But we just keep giving opportunities. Meanwhile, super talented people of color, minorities get no chance, or if they get one chance, by the way, and fail, they never get invited back.
Exactly.
By the way, we have audio of your first appearance on Chris Matthews' show, and it's just you saying, "Thanks for having me on, Chris." That's the only thing you got to say. He talked the whole time.
I gotta defend Chris. One thing I like, and I appreciated this from a training perspective. And like I said, this is not, this isn't like I'm not paid to say this, but I can say this about Chris. If you watch like British TV, like if you watch British news, like they're really aggressive and they want you to prove their point. And I really appreciated how aggressive Chris was and the way he would like, well, what about this? And what about this? And when he would demand or whatever, because it makes you hone your craft.
That's for sure.
It's gonna make you fight for your space and fight for your argument. I actually appreciated that about Chris. And plus, he was a really, really funny guy. Yeah. So I think everybody. What's Frost Nixon? It's this very sort of British way of defending yourself. So I enjoyed it. I will have to find my first appearance on Chris Matthews, though. It probably was like 2015, 2017.
Get out the VHS tapes. Well, listen, I'm so glad that your voice is back on MSNBC, and a lot of people are really excited to have you back. I mean, pundits can be a dime a dozen, but you're just you hit home runs, and you've been hitting home runs every time you go on TV for as long as I can remember. So it's what you just said about Chris Matthews is how I feel when I'm in conversation with you. You got to stay on your toes. You got to be ready for anything. So thanks for joining me today, as always. I love talking to you, and next time we'll try to get your mom involved.
Yeah, we're going to try and get my mom, and we're going to try and get April Rain. We're going to make both those things happen.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be awesome to have her as well. Yeah, we've been talking about that. All right, sir. Thank you very much.
Later, man. Peace.
Dr. Jason Johnson on Twitter at Dr. Jason Johnson. That was fun. Wasn't that fun? A lot of laughs, a lot of different things. Always love talking to him. We cover a lot of ground, and I thought it'd be fun to get him on with his mom. That'd be really good. We're going to try to make that happen. Maybe even next week. All right, who else do you want me to have on the show? You tell me. I get a lot of guest suggestions almost every day. Email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. And joining me now, as he does every Friday, except for the last two, because I was traveling on Thursdays when we generally tape the interviews, to pull back the curtain a little bit for you, is Christian Finnegan, who, when we did comedy, used to be a comedian. And, he's still a comedian, of course. We're all still comedians. There's just not any live performance. Although there are actually some places are doing outdoor gigs. I'm scheduled to do a gig in Royalsford, Pennsylvania on Saturday, August 8th. This is the first time I've mentioned it, plugged it. It's the first time I'm going to try to do stand-up in an outdoor situation with social distancing and face masks. I'm wary about the whole idea, but I'm excited to get back on stage. So looking forward to that. I'll tell you and share with you more details. Remember, tonight, 8 p.m., Dr. Aaron Carroll on Zoom chat with, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people joining us tonight. I'd love to have you be a part of it. It feels great to be a part of that community and see all your faces and hear from you. It's fun. We always have a good time. So I hope to see you tonight at 8 p.m. if you're listening to this on Friday, July 17th. And sign up right now if you're not a subscriber so you can join us and see Dr. Carroll in person. Well, not in person, but on Zoom, and ask him a question. All right, let's get to my interview with Christian Finnegan. We covered a lot of ground, talked about a bunch of different news from the week and more. Let's do it. Follow him right now at Christ Finnegan on Twitter. Buy his stand-up specials on iTunes or wherever you buy stand-up, and listen to our conversation right now. Okay, so after 2 weeks, I've got him back because I was traveling on Thursdays, both Thursdays when we usually tape. Very happy to see my friend Christian Finnegan. Hey, pal.
It was actually 3 weeks, Pete.
Was it 3 weeks in a row?
Because we've missed 2 weeks, so it's been 3 weeks since.
That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm. Well done. You know math, and
I've been making like knife marks in the wall to mark each day.
You have like a nativity calendar. just opening a door. How many more days till I get to talk to my friend Pete? I know it must have been hard for you.
It was very difficult.
With everything else that you've gone through, this must have been the hardest thing, not talking to me.
Well, I just, I spend an hour a week just sitting in front of this microphone and talking, whether you're there or not. I paste a picture of you on my laptop and I just talk to that picture.
Did you tear down the Pete Dominick statue?
It does represent colonialism. And I don't know.
Is that a dog?
2 dogs. There's 2 dogs.
You have 2 dogs now?
We've always had 2.
Oh,
we've
my
had
bad.
2 for a long time. Well, we had 2, then we had 1, now we have 2.
It's great to see you and great to hear your voice, and I'm happy that you're here. And there's a bunch of things that I want to talk with you about because we haven't talked in a few weeks. But a lot of listeners know your wife's story, and just I wanted to hopefully I'm going to talk to Cambry, your wife, on the show next week about her loss. But of course, her dad was in prison. She wrote a whole memoir about her life and her dad, and it's a really heart-wrenching and crazy story because he got paroled and then was diagnosed with cancer and passed away a short period of time later. How did I do recapping that just now? But I'm really sorry for your loss.
Pretty close. I mean, he wasn't released. I mean, that's the sort of the cruel joke of the situation, and Cambry can speak to it in much more detail than I can, but he was approved for parole, but he wasn't set to be released until October or November. But for some reasons, I mean, I guess that there's some sort of courses that they make them go through to readjust them to society. I don't know why that has to wait until they're approved for parole. And then also it's just backlog. There's something like 15,000 prisoners in Texas right now who've been approved for parole who haven't been released. And, know, COVID is kind of making that tough. And again, that's something Cambry can speak to with a lot more education than I can because she lives it and breathes it. But yeah, so he had been approved for parole and we were kind of getting ready to deal with that situation. And then he had been having chest pains. And by the time a doctor saw him, he was given a month to live. And then 6 days later, he was dead. He had lung cancer that had spread into his heart. And, again, I don't want to steal Cambry's thunder too much, but it's a problem with the penal system in general. And from what I gather, particularly in Texas, where they're just ridiculously punitive and hiding behind bureaucracy to just be cruel. Cambry was able to, he's deaf, and Cambry was able to FaceTime with him twice before he died, but for 5 minutes on the dot with someone literally saying 30 seconds left while they held a phone in front of his face. With him completely, wacko on pain medication. And for what reason, I have no idea. People weren't allowed to send him cards or gifts. You had to be on plain white paper or else it would get destroyed or returned. This is a 73-year-old man who's dying of cancer. This is not a flight risk or he's not going to start cooking meth in the palliative unit. But again, it's like everyone sort of hides behind their bureaucracy. It's like, well, these are the rules. These are rules. It's like, yeah, the rules are set up to be cruel and to.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, I'm looking forward to talking with her about it and hearing from her the story. But there's just, there's no amount of punishment that is enough for some people, and especially in our country, lots of other countries as well. But this idea of punishment and consequences and not believing in rehabilitation and just putting people away, like it's very common here, and it doesn't work, and it's a waste of money. I feel like
that's the thing. It's like, set aside the moral aspects of it. It doesn't work. It does not work. And again, as my wife says all the time, it's like, unless these people are mass murderers, they're going to get out someday. Who do you want living in your neighborhood? Like, who do you want, being next to you at the supermarket? Like, what are these people that we're bringing back into society, and how are we preparing them to live even remotely normal lives if you spent the last, the 20 years of their life treating them like animals? When you treat people like animals, they animalize.
Yeah.
That's just, that's what happens.
Yeah.
And so even if you don't think that rehabilitation is worthwhile for sort of moral reasons, or you think that it's, who knows, you have some sort of eye for an eye mentality, it's just impractical, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, and more people are coming to that realization. I remember like 10 years ago when I interviewed this guy from an organization, I think it was something like Conservatives Against the Death Penalty. And it wasn't even a religious thing necessarily. It was like a fiscal conservative thing. I was like, this is not cost effective. We're wasting so much money. And did you see this week the federal government, is it decided that they could put people to death again? I forget which court. Was that a Supreme Court decision? Whatever. But it
was a Supreme Court. I don't know if it was a full court decision, but some ruling they gave allowed federal executions to move forward. And of course, Barr jumped on it.
Yeah. Yes. The Attorney General, Bill Barr, who is, can't say enough good things about him. Let's go from that to another law enforcement issue, because you and I, before we started here, I was just watching this video that you had shared on Twitter. Did you share? I saw it
I just retweeted it. Chris Titus had posted it, and I just retweeted it. But you happen to see it around the same time. I'm sure it'll probably be making the rounds today, is my guess. Yeah,
of a guy, I don't know where it came from, but of a guy's a black man sitting behind his steering wheel, and this cop just screaming at him to get out. And we don't know the backstory of it, but like and when we talk about police reform or abolish the police or defund the police, like it's such a good example of looking at, apparently, I guess he might have been pulled over maybe for expired license plate or something like that.
Expired tags.
Expired tags.
That's what they said. Yeah.
But like, again, that's not a reason to be mad at somebody. Like, I mean, like, even there's all kinds of minor laws that we can break that we don't need.
He kept yelling at the guy to look at him. Look at me in the eye. Because he wouldn't, the passenger was just talking to his phone and to his camera, and he was narrating the whole thing. And to the extent that the cop stuck his face, like got into the car with him just to crane his face around to try to make eye contact with him. And it's funny, we were also talking about, there's a great article in Vox this week by Zach Beecham about, it's a long, extensive article about what cops actually believe and how they are trained. And it's kind of terrifying. And it's not any one cop's fault. It's just the way that society, as a society, we have trained cops to think. And one of the things they talk about is how cops have to maintain what they call the edge. And by the edge, it means you can't punk me. You can't belittle me. Because if you belittle me, I have to beat the shit out of you in order to maintain that edge, so that you understand who's in power here and who's not. And in their minds, it's because if I don't do that, then it's potentially dangerous for me. They're taught that if they allow any disrespect from anyone, that will then escalate into people just, blowing away cops.
It's just not true. I mean, it's not true. Even in counterterrorism, it's not true. I mean, torturing someone is not nearly as effective as actually giving them a cigarette and a cup of tea. Like, it's just not. I mean, it's been proven over and over. You don't have to be an asshole and, quote, maintain that edge. Even if the bad guy is a terrorist screaming in your face, that's not necessarily the best method at all. I got to read that article. I'm looking forward to it. But I interviewed this guy, a police officer down in New Orleans. He talks all about this. Skinner is his name, and he is a really interesting guy. You actually used to work in counterterrorism, and he talked about that cop mentality. And it's this us against them, this like military training. They think they have the Punisher tattoos, and they really think that the public is the enemy. It's a terrible, terrible culture, and it's widespread in law enforcement across the country, and absolutely has to change. So yeah, I mean, it gets screwed up on both ends. On the one end, it's not just for black people. Like I've had so many problems with cops. Like they escalate it so quickly that then I get mad, and I have the privilege of doing that. But like a cop just pulling me over and starts yelling at me for like speeding or something. I'm like, why? Wait, hold on a second. Why are you being a cop yelling at me because I was standing in the wrong place at a bike race while I was watching my dad? Like, why are you being a dick? You don't have to be a dick. Think of all the times that you have flipped somebody off on the highway, because maybe they cut you off, or maybe on some level you kind of knew that maybe it was your fault, but you're in a shitty mood and you're just blowing off steam, and you're
you were in a fight with your kids or your boss or your wife or whatever. And think of that, but you have that 7, or 40 hours a week, and you are always granted the benefit of the doubt. Think about how the average person would abuse that. Now factor in the kinds of people who decide to become cops in the first place. And, I think that's what I was saying on both ends. I think it's screwed up because I think we really have to change how we hire police, the kind of people we encourage to become police officers, the kind of people who are rejected from becoming police officers. And then once they're hired, this siege mentality, this idea that the thin blue line between, chaos, it's absurd. It's nonsense. And I think, if anything, 2020, these protests have shown us, and, I hate iPhones. I hate social media in many ways, but all these things that we thought were these just crazy isolated incident, this one random cop who's an asshole. It's like, oh no, this is clearly pervasive. It doesn't matter which city, it doesn't matter which, doesn't necessarily even matter all the time what race the officers are, it's
the race or
culture.
gender of the person, in public necessarily. By the way, I had a recent kind of road incident where, I guess either I cut a guy off or I was driving too slow, whatever, and he pulls up and he gives me the finger. So I blow him a kiss, and then he did the jerk off motion at me. So then I'm next to him at a stoplight and he's doing that to me. And I yelled at him, I go, "You're saying you want to jerk me off?" And that was it. It was over. Like, he just rolled his eyes and he's like, he didn't know what to do. It was so much fun. It was really fun. I was like, wait, I believe it, because now you're doing the
because there's a rest stop right up the road. If you want
seriously, let's make this happen, sir. You look like you got a purty mouth, or I do. Anyway, so I'll have to take a look at that Zach Beecham article. That looks really fascinating. He's a great writer and journalist.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you can hear, but I'm in World War II England right now.
Yeah, I sounded like a loud fart. What was that?
That was, I think it was like an 18-wheeler driving by.
Oh, all right. I got noises out my window now in my makeshift studio too, mostly trains. So hopefully you're picking up on that, everybody. Ivanka Trump has an idea for people to find new jobs. She's had a rough week because this is the White House tells 18 million unemployed workers to find something new in an ad campaign, including apparently contract tracers. That's a job to trace people who may have had COVID and who they were in contact with. Ivanka tweets, "Whether you're entering the workforce for the first time or need to pivot and retrain due to COVID-19, explore all of your options to acquire in-demand job skills." And what's wrong with this? What's wrong with suggesting that we all adapt and evolve to a new economy?
There's, on its face, there is nothing wrong with it in the sense that, people are going to have to learn new skills. It's what we always say to coal miners, is that we're going to have to retrain them to do wind and solar and things like that. And it's the message and the messenger. First of all, find something new. Fuck off. First of all, find something new. Where are these new jobs that you're talking about? You're talking about theoretical jobs. I don't see a lot of contact tracer, job listings. I mean, granted, I'm not on job listings, but also I'm a comedian. I don't know how the fuck I would be qualified to do any of those jobs. But also, it's just, Marie Antoinette historically gets a bad rap for the whole let them eat cake thing, which I guess there's some historical debate about whether she actually said that or what she actually meant by it. But the way it's characterized is just this aloof rich person being like, oh, well, why don't they just eat cake? The same way that like when Katrina hit, when all these people are like, why don't these people in New Orleans just go to their summer homes? But this is that for real. Like, this is the parody of Marie Antoinette, like this idea of like, just go get a new career, you 45-year-old laid off, camera technician who works at the local news station or whoever, these people who are out of jobs. It's just, it so reeks of, oblige noblige, or just this idea that the poors will work something out. Just go go do this for your job. We get to have careers. You have to have jobs.
Well, it's coming from her. She's never had to find a job. I mean, she's always everything get handed to her. And by the way, good for her. But don't be that person and go tell people. It's so terrible coming from her. I see what you're saying. But also, there are no jobs.
There are no jobs.
Like, we're still in the phase, and we will be, unfortunately, for the foreseeable future, where people are going to continue to lose their jobs. I mean, and there's nowhere to look to get another job because there's a goddamn pandemic. And finally, she should, every time we mention her name, it's obligatory to say she should not be in that job herself. It is completely unethical for she and her husband to be working in the administration. Completely.
Even if she was qualified, which she's not. Of course,
even if she
was talented, which I've seen no evidence that she is.
If she was a the most qualified person in education, she still shouldn't be the Secretary of Education. But she's not. And that's not a liberal idea or a conservative idea. If
you're
talking
about Betsy DeVos.
No, but I'm saying if Ivanka was qualified.
I see
because if you're governor or mayor, you can't give your kid a job. That's
first of all,
never been okay.
I'm reasonably certain that Ivanka Trump is AI.
You are? Why do you say that? You think she's a robot?
I don't even think that she's a physical person. I think that she's like a hologram,
an image, just like a graphic,
just like a weird science.
What informs
type
you
deal
of that?
For just the complete opacity with which she speaks, where she can just say nothing for 3 minutes straight,
right?
But always with that smile of like, am I smart or am I smart? Like the way she just speaks in this corporate, corporate speak, that sort of these dumb buzzwords, synergy, and it's
a human wouldn't a human wouldn't be able to behave that way.
Also, she's had those veneers for way too long to still speak as awkwardly as she speaks.
What about though the other thing this week, a part of Ivanka's terrible week? She's hawking Goya products, and now the president is also hawking Goya products because the CEO of Goya said some nice things about the president. And that's been controversial because, of course, Goya is a product that a lot of Hispanic Americans apparently buy. And so obviously he's been terrible to Hispanic Americans. And more importantly, doesn't matter. You're not allowed to promote products when you're a politician, a congressman, a mayor. You're not allowed to.
They did straight up ads. I mean, that's, those pictures they sent. I mean, she's doing the awkward 1950s hold the can up, Geritol presents 21, like she's doing that classic spokesperson advertising pose with it. I kind of hope that the Pert Plus CEO comes out for Trump so that Ivanka does that Pert Plus commercial thing where she can't handle bottles of shampoo and conditioner at once. Like, I need one bottle. I'm juggling all these bottles.
That's perfect. Oh, God, I want that to happen so badly now. No, I'm just waiting for that to happen. All right, enough about Ivanka Trump. Let's talk about Tucker Carlson. He went on vacation this week. Did you hear?
Pre-planned.
A pre-planned vacation.
Because everyone goes on vacation on Tuesday. That's when everyone, they go to work on Monday and then go on vacation on Tuesday. That's how generally people arrange their vacations, right?
I find out, by the way, it seems like he's on a vacation because he does his show like 35 shows a year from like Maine, where he has a vacation home. Tucker Carlson is born into a very wealthy family, the Swanson Meals, TV dinner family. He's always been a rich asshole. And I mean, like the most typical. I interviewed him once. He was such an unbelievable asshole. And it was like, are you playing a character of a rich
his
prick?
Rebranding as a populist is hilarious. For anyone who used to know Crossfire when he was the bow tie young conservative, the Wall Street Journal representative, the king of globalism and trade and things like that. And now he's trying to, be Huey Long. It's like, who the fuck are you kidding, dude?
So it's rich that CNN is the one that busted him, and reporter Oliver Darcy, I think, from CNN, because they got the tip. And I really want to know how they got the tip that that Tucker Carlson's head writer was a horrible, horrible racist, which absolutely surprised nobody.
Of course.
But what left us there to say about this guy and the reaction to it this week?
I guess just this media pose where we have to pretend to be surprised by any of this, and I read the things that this dude had.
Yeah, me too.
Complete fucking dweeb had posted in these racist message boards. And, they're 5% more overt than the things he writes for Tucker Carlson on a night-to-night basis. There's really nothing. Okay, yeah, he made a joke about Asians doing LASIK surgery, which probably Tucker would have taken a red pen to just for PR reasons. But the intellectual thrust behind everything he's saying is exactly the kind of stuff you see on Tucker's show every night. And so we have to be honest with ourselves about who these people are and what they're really trying to accomplish politically. And they are straight up trying to advocate for white supremacy. I mean, I think we have to stop dancing around it. We have to stop, just like when people say we have to stop with Trump using he spoke a mistruth or, right. It was not a verifiable statement. It's like, call it a lie, And I think that we have to stop giving Tucker Carlson and people like that the benefit of the doubt. And I understand the Brian Stetlers of the world, the Howard Kurtzes, the media analysts have to. I don't know why they continue to do this stupid dance. I mean, Howard Kurtz, obviously, he's moved to Fox and he's, of course, coincidentally become much more right wing. But the rest of us don't have to. The rest of us, when I found out that Tucker Carlson's head writer had been a presence on racist message boards, I'm like, yeah, okay, what's for lunch? Of course,
right.
Of course he was.
Not surprising at all.
Did you happen to see the Washington Post does this thing called Date Lab, which is their kind of, like newspapers will do this sort of love connection where they'll send two people out on a date and they'll report back about how the date went or whatever. And I guess this guy a few years ago had been on one of those Date Lab dates. And there's a Washington Post article about him having gone on this date, and he just comes across like the biggest tool in the world. He hooked him up with a young conservative girl, and they go out and have dinner, and he says that alcohol is poison, and just like, I don't know. He's I just found it. I'm reading it now. And then after drinks, they went to a cross burning. Yes. Well, it was. He had it in his bedroom, so it was kind of like, hey, come check out my burning cross. It's just like the way I would have like a Portishead CD kind of at the ready. He had a cross.
In his bedroom, he started a fire. It's just at this point, it's hard. Tucker Carlson is so popular. His show is the most watched show. And also other news about him this week. After last week, the president commuted the sentence of Roger Stone. Roger Stone came on Hannity, surprisingly, and thanked Tucker Carlson, which must have been bittersweet for Hannity. But the idea that he's also responsible for that. I mean, this guy has he has no fucks to give at all, Tucker Carlson. He really doesn't. And
what's he going to lose? Even if Biden wins, then he'll just pivot to being the voice of the opposition.
Oh, he's so good for him.
I'm sure it'll be better.
But what do you make of, like, I know this is kind of amateur hour to analyze, but what do you make of him attacking Tammy Duckworth, who is, a Purple Heart helicopter pilot in the Iraq War who lost her legs, by calling her specifically not a patriot? Like, what is that? What is that formula? Because it really works. But how do you name that?
Because you go right at a person's strength. You don't attack them on their weaknesses. You attack them where they're perceived to be strong. And so you take a wounded veteran and you go right after that. And these people, in their minds, they're not lying, because in their minds, patriotism is really fealty to the quote unquote natural order of things. is really what patriotism means. It has nothing to do with the actual physical 50 states known as the United States of America. It is a fealty to a certain hierarchy that exists and is being threatened. And if you are someone who is threatening the way things are and have been, then you are not patriotic, regardless of whether you've lost legs in a war. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you are challenging the preordained way things are, quote unquote, you are not patriotic.
That is the soundbite for today's interview. That is brilliant. I've never quite heard it described that way, and I've been interviewing a lot of people who are basically talking about that, but we haven't talked about patriotism, and maybe they wrote about it, but Catherine Stewart in her book, and Sarah Posner in her book, and Jared Yates Sexton, who was on yesterday's show, who is great. But they talk so much about basically what you just said, but they haven't yet gotten through all of their books, but talk about it the way that you did in terms of patriotism. It's not what we would traditionally define as patriotism, or what the definition is in the dictionary of patriotism. It's a respect for, or a lack of a better word,
what they would call a way of life.
A way of life, which is their way of life.
Yes, of course. Yes. I mean, a way of life is the euphemistic way of saying a social order, a hierarchy.
And in that hierarchy, I don't want to attribute every one of these ideas to all of those people, but black people know their place, women know their place, and gay people shouldn't be even in. Yes.
And not the outright straight up Nazis, but the sort of one step removed from that. In their minds, they're not racist because I want black people to succeed. I want women to have jobs, whatever, as long as they always remember that they are guests in my house
or my neighborhood.
That as long as you are respectful to me, the owner of this house, then we can be friends. But the minute you start to assert equality with me in terms of ownership and control of things, well, then we have a problem, because that's not what America is. America is, it's my house and you're a visitor.
Yeah, really well said. But take that to the issue of the Confederate statues or the Confederate flag. How is standing up for and supporting Confederate statues or Confederate named parks, military bases, or the Confederate flag? How is that? Is that patriotism? Or is that the exact opposite given the history of the Confederacy?
No, but that's exactly what I'm talking about, because in the lizard brain, of course, nobody can say this, or nobody wants to say this out loud, but Confederate values are very patriotic in their minds, because if you think of patriotism as representing fealty to a way of life and as a certain social order, then all the values of the Confederacy fold very nicely into their notion of what patriotism is. It doesn't matter what technical flag they happen to be flying. It doesn't matter what technical, if they technically waged war on the quote unquote United States of America. They represent what I represent, which is we're in control. You know what I mean? And maybe even, the Republicans who, the quote unquote sane Republicans, I'm saying quote unquote a lot today. Even the sane Republicans, they don't want you to say this stuff out loud. They don't want cross burnings. They don't want you to say that. They don't want you to say that other people are inferior. They want you to just accept that is the case. They want a friendly control as opposed to a hostile control, but it's still control.
Did you see the president trying to split hairs on the Confederate flag? And a question this week from CBS News, reporter Catherine Hendricks, where he basically said, it's freedom of speech, Confederate flag, freedom of speech. He's actually right about that, except for it's also true that if NASCAR doesn't want it flown, then they have that freedom to say no more. If I want to fly it outside my house, that's freedom of speech. But if I want, but a government, my state government can't fly it on the Capitol dome because that's the government flying a traitorous flag. Like, he tried to split hairs with that old argument about the Confederate flag is freedom of speech. And while that is true, he's still the president of the United States and should say, I hate that flag and denounce it and say it shouldn't be flown at private events, or rather at NASCAR. It shouldn't be flown at the Capitol building. But, you know, if someone wants to put a bumper sticker or fly a flag off their pickup truck or in front of their house, fine. But there's going to be consequences for you. You might lose business. And
yeah, I technically have the right to hang a big NAMBLA banner on the front of my car.
And
if I wanted to.
And full disclosure, you actually have one as your backdrop today, which I wasn't going to mention.
It's a slightly strange choice. I will admit that. But freedom of speech does not apply to governments erecting statues. I mean, that's not government speech is not individual speech. And sure, governments can do that if they want to. And when the people of said government decide they want to get rid of those things, they have a right to get rid of them.
Right.
You know, I mean, you can quibble with, oh, well, they should have sent it through the legislature and made this official, a government action, as opposed to sort of protesters in the middle of the night. But, well, let's see where that has gotten us. Let's see where this, you know, going through bureaucratic channels has gotten anybody. And when you rob people of legitimate power, when you deny them legitimate power, they use whatever faux power they have tyrannically, or people, they tend to go over the top, you know. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it does make sense. I mean, I think it's very common. Yeah.
And so I kind of wish that the sort of rash of late night statue toppling would probably end. I think it's a net negative at the end of the day. I don't think it's helpful in the long run. But am I surprised by it? Absolutely not. Do I think it represents some clear and present danger to the United States of America? Absolutely not. It's just something that, you know, maybe there'd be a better way in my mind.
You sent a really interesting article for me to read and discuss with you, which I did. It's fascinating. It's from Mother Jones by Ben Dreyfuss. It's titled "In Defense of Woke Brands. Culture Wars Don't Win Themselves. The brands want you to know they are woke." In tweets and commercials and press releases this week, the brands have been telling consumers they're mad as hell and they will not take it anymore. Black lives, the brands insist, do matter. There's plenty of criticism to be made against those companies, whether it be Nike or any of the rest, that stand up for different issues or take stances on different issues, from LGBT equality or guns, or in this case, Black Lives Matter, that we've seen lately. But how do you see it? Are you cynical about major companies taking those stances?
Well, of course I am. Of course I'm cynical, but it doesn't mean that's not a positive thing.
Right.
You know, it's the kind of thing, as a comedian, that's sort of a slow pitch over the plate for us, you know, to sort of make fun of stuff like this. You know, oh, Nike's going to come out, Nike, with your slave labor. You're going to come out against, you know, for social justice. It's a little rich. We all understand that. But as Ben Dreyfuss says in the subheading there, it's like, these things don't win themselves. And rather than just saying it's a bad thing when Nike tweets for Black Lives Matter or whatever, take it as a sign that we're winning.
Right. He has a great line here in this article. He writes, "If there's any manipulation at work here, it's not corporations manipulating people into thinking they care. It's people manipulating corporations into helping their cause." I think that's perfectly well said, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a representation of how the conversation has altered over the past 20 years. 20 years ago, not just Nike, I keep using Nike as an example, all of these McDonald's, you wouldn't be able to get an actual social justice statement out of one of these companies. They would just sort of hold their hands up, hey, that's not what we do, you know, which in itself is a political statement to sort of stay above the fray whenever these things rise up. But I do think that even amongst companies, there is a sense that we're at a pivot in this country where things are either going to go one way or the other. And I think that companies, first of all, they understand that the people on one side are the customers they're trying to get, and the people on the other side aren't. You know, I put it to kind of point on it, but, you know, there's the 24 to 39 demo and the 39 to 54 demo, and the people that spend money specifically on things like, you know, Nike shoes and apparel and McDonald's and things like that are younger people who have a more social justice minded attitude towards things. Yes. And even at its most cynical, it's a confirmation that the younger generation wants to see things done a different way.
As opposed to the companies that advertise on Tucker Carlson and generally to older white people. I mean, It's surprising that he has any ads left. I would love to see who's, spending money on his show at this point. But what do you think of boycotts of things like Goya or companies that advertise on Tucker Carlson or something?
I have mixed feelings about. I mean, I'm for it philosophically. I have mixed opinions about the effectiveness of it.
Right.
Goya, I'll be interested. Goya is going to be an interesting test case because it's one of those literal kitchen table type brands. It's not Lexus. It's not it's not John Deere tractors that only a few people buy. It's food that people just buy. And I don't know. I mean, we have a pallet of Goya black beans in our basement right now that we bought when lockdown happened, when we stocked up on food.
I heard you bought it after the CEO came out in support for Trump, but maybe I had the wrong information.
I did. As
a result.
No, I don't know, man. I can say that for me personally, if the next time I go to buy black beans, if there's two brands and one of them's not Goya, I'm buying the other brand. Right. I mean, but I don't have any illusions that that's somehow sticking it to Trump. It's just a question of, I have, what people would critique as a neoliberal system. That's the only power as a consumer I have is where I'm going to spend my money.
Lastly, I just wanted to get your kind of general take on where you think we're at in the country. What's your mood? How are you thinking about like the next 6 months to a year in terms of the pandemic, the virus, and the way things play out, based on the fact that so many people in so many states just don't think it's a concern to the point they're not wearing masks. The governments in many of those states are not enforcing those things. They have a hodgepodge of rules, county to county. And I think, there's a huge lack of leadership, and you're seeing the virus spread. It's far worse now than it was at what we thought was its peak earlier in April and March in states like Florida and Arizona and Texas now and California. And I just think that the worst news that we've seen this week, did you see this, was that now apparently the CDC is not going to be transparent about statistics. Some of the statistics they've started hiring, and like everybody
took down their dashboard about like daily cases there. You can no longer like go to the CD website and find out.
It's unprecedented why any public health organization would ever not be transparent. It makes things so much harder.
Does it shock? I mean, nothing shocks me at this point.
Right.
And there are, I would say, more moments of the day where I have a dark and negative view of how the next 6 months is going to play out.
Right.
But I console myself by reminding myself that nobody knows anything.
Yep. That's a good way. That's a really good actual piece of advice. And it certainly was the case with me. I've said this a few times, but when I lost my job, it was devastating for some. And my wife reminded me every day that you have no idea what's coming. You don't know what's coming. And she was so right, because who would have known that there was a pandemic and everybody was going to lose their job. And, it's uncertainty is very hard, but it also is there's some
grace there. There's a bit of a cushion, and as long as there's a question mark, it's like that Jim Carrey and Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance.
What are we drinking lately?
I too much as usual, but I'm having a delicious Captain Lawrence Hop Commander IPA right now.
No, thank you.
I know people have very negative IPA feelings.
Listener just sent me, bought me 6-pack of like a bunch of different ones. And bottom line is, I guess I'm opposed to flavor.
No, there's a lot of people. I don't think that it's a very specific taste, and some people just don't get into it. My wife, when she used to drink, would say that it tastes like soap.
Yes.
Which I get it. Yeah. I can taste that.
Well, I appreciate your open-mindedness and not being too judgmental for my lack of interest in actual good beer or
Dave Holmes, who's, I don't know if you know Dave Holmes. He's really funny, interesting dude. He was an MTV VJ for a while in the 90s, and he's kind of a comedy. He's a comedy adjacent dude. He does some improv and whatnot, but he's also writes for Esquire a lot. And he wrote a great article a few months ago about the then rising alcoholic seltzer fad. The White Claws and all the other brands of alcoholic seltzers. I
love them.
Basically, and when I read the headline, I was like, what is this clickbait bullshit? Where it was something along the lines of that alcoholic seltzer is the new punk rock. And I was like, what does that mean? But then I saw it was Dave that wrote it. I was like, okay, well, I trust Dave. And so I clicked on the article, and he made a case that was actually really smart. His idea is that things like double porters and stouts and double IPAs and these are kind of the equivalent of like ridiculous, absurd 70s prog rock of like 10-minute keyboard solos, and every song has got parts, and it's like a symphony, and there's 20 minutes long, and it's completely lame. And then punk rock comes along. It's like, this is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be stupid. And it's supposed to be fun. 4 chords, Ramones. Like, let's do it. And he's like, with alcoholic seltzer, it's like, the point is to get drunk. That's what you're doing this for. Right. Like, what is this, these tasting flights of beers, with cheese platters. I'm like, no, it's to get drunk. And that's what these alcoholic seltzers are for. And it's like, I kind of agree with that point.
That sounds like a good article. I got to look at it. All right, buddy. Well, that's a good note to end on. Thank you, as always, for joining me here on the Friday show. We love talking to Christian Finnegan, always hearing your great perspective and a bunch of great points today. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, dude.
I get so much positive feedback from my conversations with Christian Finnegan. And like I said yesterday, a lot of great feedback on yesterday's episode. And overall, so many people excited about how, I guess the compliment I hear the most is that I've hit my stride. I'm back, and it feels good to be back, everybody. I know shit's crazy in all of our lives, including mine. And I feel really awesome to have this community to support me and I to support you, and know that you're not alone, and I'd love to reach out and connect with you. I didn't talk to as many folks as I'd like to this week, only a handful of you, so I look forward to touching base with you soon, and hopefully see you tonight. If you're listening on Friday, July 17th, when this episode dropped, then look forward to seeing you tonight on the Zoom Hangout, where our special guest will be Dr. Aaron Carroll finally. Got him to join us, found out late last night that he was able to do it, and psyched to have him, because everybody's got a ton of questions for Dr. Carroll about the pandemic and about public health and so much more. So that's tonight. Sign up right now, patreon.com/Pete Dominic if you haven't already, and you should be getting emailed all the details to join us, and I look forward to seeing you there. All right, that's it. I will be alone this weekend. My wife and daughters are going to the beach, the Jersey Shore, Saturday, and I'll be home trying to get this studio ready to be built outside, and could use your support. And I might be a little lonely. I need a time though. I need a time alone. It'll be healthy, right? Because solitude is good for a minute. For those of you that are single and alone during the pandemic, I'm not sure you might feel that way, but I'm looking forward to it. Having a little bit of time, although I always miss them, and I don't know why I'm still talking. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I love you. You're not alone. I'll talk to you soon. Hopefully I'll see you tonight. If not, I will talk to you on Monday right here on the Stand Up with Pete Dominic podcast.